This is CW InfoSec, and today we are joined by a special guest who, while striking fear in the hearts and minds of his enemies, also instills passion and leaves a lasting desire to win in those of his friends. If you want to achieve these goals now or later, you have to do the work. No one is going to do it for you. Hell, some will try to bring you down before they lift you up. But if you want it, you have to do the work. It's not going to be easy, but in a world that continues to try to take from us, we have to do better for ourselves to get what we work hard for and what we deserve. No one is going to help you be the best version of you better than yourself. That is a quote from the Start Your New Year Goals Today blog post on alphacybersecurity.tech, written by Davin Jackson. He is a penetration tester, veteran, father, leader, and mentor. Being no stranger to life's struggles, he's proof that goals can not only be achieved, but they can be totally conquered when you find the strength to lead your wolf pack and the courage to lead yourself. Good afternoon, DJax.
Well, damn, that was pretty damn good. How you doing?
Doing all right. I always try to do these epic intros. I take a lot of inspiration from other content creators, but I try to make it my own in certain ways. But
that was pretty awesome. I might have to take that, like the Dark Knight theme music in the background, and have a whole little thing going. Oh man!
So, for those that may not have heard of you, tell us a little about yourself. What's the life of DJax Alpha Jackson like?
Oh man, so I'm Davin Jackson. I'm a Pentester, security architect, and I'm also a blogger and content creator for my blog alphacybersecurity.tech, as well as the YouTube channel. I'm a father. I'm a husband, Air Force veteran. Just someone who's just trying to get by in this world, and try to bring a couple people along with me. So thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here, and like I said, I just want to kind of share some stuff with today.
Happy to have you here. So, being a penetration tester, I'm certain most of my audience is going to have an understanding of what that might entail. But for those that are just, maybe coming new to the field, don't have an idea of what the actual job entails, what do you currently do, and what originally sparked your interest in penetration testing?
So what I usually do is test the security of network systems, web applications, mobile apps. Currently, I've been testing APIs and phones and web applications. And long story short, I'm what they call a hacker. I'm an ethical hacker or white hat hacker or whatever they call it these days. I get paid and permission, because that's definitely a major factor in all of it. But I get permission to test the security, see what I can find, and basically simulate an attack, like as if they were going through a real cyber attack, and write up the reports and hopefully get them secure before they get caught by the bad guys. What originally sparked my interest, it's a really long story. So a couple years after I got out of service, a lot of people think when I was in the service, I was actually in technology or cybersecurity. I was actually an aircraft mechanic on the F-16 and the F-117 stealth. And when I got out, I realized there aren't any fighter jets in the civilian world. So, so there wasn't really anything I can do from there. Went and bounced around from job to job for a little while. And then honestly, I think it was my wife. She wasn't my wife then, but it was just kind of like, well, what do you like to do? We have to figure out something. By that time, my daughter was born, and I always liked technology, but growing up where we grew up, it wasn't something that we always thought we could do. Whether it wasn't we weren't smart enough, or we just didn't have access to those resources. Then on top of it, coming out of the military, having a child, uh, going to school going back to college at that time was kind of like out of the question. It was one of those, I gotta figure out something now. So I was always good with technology, and then I realized you can get certified to do it, and there was another path. So I started doing that, getting my certifications while working. I had to get my first job doing basically volunteering my free time at Circuit City. So that will show you how long it's been since I got started. I was a fire dog technician. I was their home theater setup guy, and then I just figured, well, in the meantime, let me get my hands-on experience there. And then from there, I did help desk for cable companies, doing like their internet help desk and stuff. I've worked for rehabilitation centers doing IT work. I've just been all over the place. Wasn't until I started working at a school system where I really started to look at the security side of things. And eventually I wanted to kind of see, well, why we kept getting hit with ransomware, or, why we're getting hit with these different attacks. And so I started looking at doing vulnerability assessments and vulnerability scans. And then of course the sister or brother, or however you want to look at it, to vulnerability testing is penetration testing. So I started looking into it, and I was like, wait, hold on, I can break stuff and get paid for it. Shut up and take my money. Let's make this happen. So I started looking into it. Honestly, by that point, how, I don't know if you're familiar with school systems, but they have the budget for everything until you ask them to put something in the budget. And I wanted to do some training for security. They were okay with it when I was like volunteering my time, but as soon as I said I wanted to do something official, there was no money in the budget. So I saved up my own money, took some time off, drove down to Virginia. Keytron Evans was teaching a penetration testing course, and I was following him for a little while. So once I found out he was going to be in Virginia, drove down to Virginia for like a week, took the course, came back, took the CEH and the CPT, which is like an entry level hands-on practical penetration testing exam. Got certified in those, and it just kind of took off from there. So told you it was going to be somewhat of a long story, but yeah, I literally started from computer repair desk to now. So,
and an important lesson in that is that literally everybody starts somewhere. There may be some rare occasions, some teenage hacker living in his mom's basement just randomly gets a job doing penetration. That is not the norm. The norm is people like you and me, starting from, some job that we don't want to do for the rest of our lives and slowly working our ways up.
Right. I mean, I think what did it for me was like the last time I was doing electrical work before I decided I wanted to get into tech. I fell off a 25-foot ladder. And it was like, I literally walked off the job site that day. Like, once I realized I could walk, I walked to my car and went home. I was like, there's no way in hell I'm doing that again.
You're like, that's it. I'm out of here. Later, suckers.
Yeah. So, yeah. So like I said, yep, put in the work, put in the time, got the certifications. And like I said, I always told myself, once I wanted to get into cybersecurity or pen testing, I said, okay, well, let me make sure I understand the other side of it. So I stayed doing, IT and help desk and stuff probably a little bit longer than I should have. But hey, I worked my way up to like sysadmin. Then I was like, okay, I'm good. I understand this side of it. So now let me go over here. But yeah.
So as far as your career now, what's a normal day like for you on the job?
Well, currently, because of where I'm at currently, there's a lot of meetings. There's a lot of meetings. Yeah, there's a lot of meetings and meetings about meetings, and then meetings about the meetings about those meetings, and then people who didn't make the meetings, you have to have a meeting with them as a catch up. No, I'm joking. Like I said, there are a lot of meetings, but right now it's a lot of planning. So I spend maybe like a week or two before a pen test. I plan everything out. I get whatever documentation I need, any type of credentials I need. You know, documentation, credentials. Make sure we go through the scope of everything. Make sure we understand what's in scope, what's not in scope, because that's major. Even though you get permission, rules of engagement can dictate otherwise at times. Almost have a walkthrough with the client on how the application operates and what it's supposed to do. Meet back with the team. That's usually the week before, and then Monday morning we hit the ground running. We're running our scripts, we're running our scans, we're doing our manual testing, our mapping, if it's a web application. And like I said, we go basically from Monday, from open to close, whatever that is these days. And yeah, we do that. Once we all get back together and determine that we've hit everything we needed to hit, we'll alert them that the testing portion is done, and then we get to the report writing. I know that's probably an unpopular thing with pen testers, but I actually enjoy writing the report. So yeah, that's usually what it is. It's a lot of meetings, or either testing or planning for testing or remediation testing. It just all depends on where we are in the week. So,
Any successful pen test stories that you're able to share? Hopefully not get in trouble by the NDA police.
yeah. So without breaking NDA, I think one of my most successful hacks was probably one that didn't involve a laptop until the very end. So I was actually on an assessment a few years ago, and the CTO of this company, I mean, they were more secure than some government sites I've been on. The CTO of this company, like the whole time I'm testing, he's literally like every time he turned around, he's like, see all the stuff we have, we probably don't even need this stuff, but since we got the money, he the whole time, and then it was like at like day 3, he goes, I bet you couldn't get in here. So I kind of looked at him. I'm like, listen, I'm not, I can't break contract. I don't want to do that. That's going to cost extra. That's a physical pen test. He just kept going. He kept going. So then he was like, I bet you money. I'm like, listen, I can't take any money, but there is a really good steakhouse on the bottom floor of my hotel. And he's like, well, whatever. So I usually say, to be in this field, you have to have a little bit of crazy in you, or you have that itch in the back of your head, right? It's almost like that voice that's just like, do it. You ever see like the evil Kermit meme?
Oh yes, yes.
I swear a pen tester made that up, because you're literally sitting there going, I really shouldn't. Let me just finish this up, and then evil Kermit is like, no, do it. So I actually worked late that night to get the assessment done, finish all my scans, and I turned in my badge that morning. And then I waited like pretty much until like the early afternoon, changed my clothes, and found like a cardboard box, and I just put on the show of a lifetime. I walked in with this box that was like, made it seem like it was the heaviest box ever in the world. And I go into the main lobby, and lady there is like, oh my gosh, are you okay? And I'm like acting like I'm falling over, and I'm complaining about my back problems. And she's like, well, where are you trying to go? I'm like, I gotta get to the 3rd floor, because that's where their floor was. And you actually had to swipe to call the elevator, and then swipe again just to get to the 3rd floor. So she swipes, whatever. So I get there, and like I said, it's early afternoon. So in my previous scoping, I realized that it would break around 1:10, 1:15, cigarette breaks or whatever. But rather than go downstairs to the designated spot, a lot of them would just go out to like the door that led to the upstairs parking lot.
Okay.
And they would just go there, do that, and then run back. So I go there with the box, and I'm just standing there because now it's like this lobby that you have to wait because you have to get buzzed in and whatever. So I waited till about 1:10, 1:15, and sure enough, everybody just came out hustling and bustling, trying to make a beeline for their cigarette break. I just walked right in. Like as they were walking right out, I just walked right in, put the box down, walked over to a network jack, plugged up my laptop, and sat there for a minute, saw, ran some stuff around, see if anybody would figure out what's going on. One guy did say, "Hey, what you doing here?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm just testing the network." And he was like, "Okay," and he just kept it going. And then,
wow.
I waited for the CTO to come back into his office, and I sat down, and I was like, "Medium well." So, so like I said, that was a cool one. Like a lot of the ones that I've done that were like physical assessments, it was really cool. Just, I mean, because it's something that you don't get to do every day, and it's almost like a big game of hide and seek. Luckily, we didn't run into issues like the coal fire guys a few months back, where there was a jurisdiction thing. But yeah, like that changed it up for me because I'm thinking like, oh crap, what if I never thought of that?
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, that was one of my cool ones. Another one I can't say who, but like I said, I pretty much like sea surfed my way to like admin.
Oh wow.
on a website that let's just say you shouldn't be able to do. I was just like, oh, let me see what happens. Oh, look, I sea surfed into here. Oh, look, I send this link. Oh, look, I got into here. Oh, look, and it was literally just from one step to the other. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
How about any failures that stood out as major learning experiences?
My first attempt at the OSCP.
True.
And the fun, I mean, actually, and I wrote an article about it. It was actually on my birthday, I think last year, and I didn't think it was going to get a lot of traction. I just wanted to do it because I just needed to get it off my chest. That and just to kind of explain the dangers of overdoing it and burnout, because that's literally, I think that's what killed me the first time around. In the job field, like I said, not really. I think like when you first start out, you get your CEH or you get your first pen testing job and you're thinking, you're going to get root all the time. And then the first time you're on a real job and you're like, I didn't get anything. Now it makes you question like I'm a failure, and it's just, but that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
So.
And, I'm no stranger to failure myself. I mean, looking back, it took me almost 8 years to do OSCP. I mean, there was a lot of life circumstances that went into that, but definitely lack of preparation, I think, was the biggest reason why I failed the first time.
Yeah. Me, I had unrealistic expectations. So, every certification, and I've had quite a few. I have quite a few. None of them are, well, except for the CPT that I took. None of them are like the OSCP, right? So, when I took it, first thing I said to myself was like, I'm going to get it in 3 months. I'm going to do it in 3 months. I was like, I gave myself, it was like July. I think I gave myself to like October 1st or some crazy crap like that. And I go through, I breeze through the course, and then I start doing the labs. And then as I'm doing the labs, I'm like, all right, fine. But then like next thing you know, oh crap, I have like 30 days left. Now the pressure's starting to mount. And I'm like, and again, I'm like, I have to make this deadline that I set for myself. So I was like staying up till 2 a.m, still getting up at 6 for work, working like 9-10 hours, and then going back into the lab still. And it was just nuts. And when I finally took the exam, I missed it by 15 points. It was ridiculous. And then I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna go again the second time around. And when I went to prepare the second time around, my body was like, no, that's enough. And it just like completely shut down. So yeah, I guess that was my first real bad crash or burnout. And it was like, okay, so I wanted to make sure that, if there's somebody out there who was as crazy as me, I wanted to tell them like, no, you know what, it's it's okay. You don't set these unrealistic deadlines. If no one's pressuring you to do it, then don't put the pressure on yourself. And if they are pressuring you to do it, then they probably don't know what it's like to take that exam either. So like I said, it was a cool experience. All in all, I still haven't gotten it yet. Things just gotten in the way. I'm shooting to go again at the end of the year, so see how that goes.
So, kind of tying this back to your earlier experiences, did you have a different career plan when you were younger? Many people start out, they're like, I want to be a doctor. And then all of a sudden, boom, whoa, I'm a penetration tester now.
So, like I said, I was always good with tech. Like, my grandmother was like my biggest cheerleader. That, and she was also my biggest fear. She would let me take whatever I wanted apart, as long as by the time my parents came home to pick me up from her house, it was back together and it was fully working. Otherwise, I would have to suffer her wrath. And like my grandmother was like, she was the sweetest lady, but she was no joke. So between that and then her telling my father that I broke something and now he would have, and of course now that's his mom, so now he's got to buy it back. And so like I said, I always tinkered with stuff. I actually got into Howard University to do audio visual. Like I said, I had enjoyed doing that while I was in high school, because I couldn't get in. There wasn't anything to really get into that was tech related. And again, just coming from where we were coming from, it wasn't ever brought to our attention that someone, that we could do this. It was always like, that was for the kids in the rich neighborhoods who, who can afford those things, or the kids that were smart enough to go to college for computer science. So although I liked it, I never saw myself doing it. And then certain circumstances happened, like, I had a lot of loss and stuff as, at 17, 18 years old. And just kind of growing up where we grew up, my mom was just pretty much like, yeah, I don't want you anywhere near Bridgeport, so you're going to go full-time into the military. At the time, I was going into the Guard, and I figured I can go to the Guard, go to Howard in D.C., and come home, whenever I wanted or on the breaks or whatever. But it was just like, my mom, I understand now why she did it, but it was just like, holy crap, you're just kind of railroading everything I ever wanted to do. So like I said, so I went into the service. I actually asked the recruiter if they had anything in tech. They were like, oh no, but you should really look into aircraft maintenance. And I was like, I don't want to do aircraft maintenance. They were like, we'll give you $5,000. And I was like, okay, so sign me up for aircraft maintenance.
That's how they get you.
Yeah, that's exactly how they get you. So like I said, so I did that. So yeah, like I said, when I came home, it was literally like, I was literally stuck like, now what? So like I said, I knew I wanted it. I always told myself it was going to be something tech related, but then like I said, as I got older, it was just like, no. Then I was going to do audio visual, and like I said, I never touched a camera or an editing machine pretty much after high school. So just how things happen.
Were there any challenges along the way?
Oh man, were there? How much time we got? Is this?
We can go as long as we need to.
I mean, there are a lot of challenges. Doubt from others, self-doubt.
100%, absolutely.
I mean, I remember when I decided, again, and I credit my wife with a lot of it, because she was literally the one that, like, she put her foot in my ass. Like, I'm man enough to say that. Like, she sat down and was like, what is it that you want to do? And I'm like, what is she like? What is it that you enjoy? Because at this time, let's say I worked at Verizon for a little while. I fell off a ladder a couple times. Like, it was just like,
Oh, Jesus.
yeah, it was, doing like, doing that. And then, like I said, and then again, growing up where I grew up, there aren't too many options after a while,
Yep.
And like I said, I really started to, I guess, panic. I have a daughter. You know what I'm saying? Like I have a daughter. I have, my woman who's the mother of my child. I gotta provide for them. So she literally like just pulled me to the side and was like, "Listen, cut the crap. What is it that you want to do?" So, like I said, I give her all the credit in the world for just kind of lighting that fire under me to just tell me I can do it. But I remember when I decided to, and I started looking at different options. Family, friends, everybody was like, no, you can't, it was just a lot. And then when I decided that I really wanted to take it serious and started, really ramping up on testing and doing the stuff for certifications, it's a process, right? It's almost like you have to put yourself in this mental zone. Like, I'm going to ignore any outside distractions. If the house isn't on fire, do not bother me during these hours I'm studying. And again, it's difficult, because like I said, you have your friends who still want to go out. You have family members who want you to come hang out with them and go to this function. And I was just all about, listen, I need to make sure I know my stuff. On top of getting the certification, I have to know my stuff, right? Because it'll get exposed a lot quicker if you have the certs and you go to ask a question. So it was just, yeah. So it was, it was a lot of that. And then it was just a lot of like, man, those nights where it's kind of where you start doubting it. Like, man, everybody's out just kind of living their lives and I'm stuck here in the basement or I'm in my room studying and, is it going to pay off? All that stuff. Like I said, and that's why I always put, if you follow me on Twitter, I always say, always bet on yourself, because sometimes that's the only person you're going to have in your corner. Even, your best friend, your bestest of friends, your closest of relatives, they're not going to understand it, unless you have someone who's related to you or a friend of yours that's also in the tech field. They can't relate. So you're going to find yourself being really lonely at times. And you're, like I said, you have to be your own cheerleader. You have to be your own motivator. So, like I said, there was a lot of that. And it's still, even to this day, you still do it, even with all the certs I have and everything that I do, there's still times where I'm like, all right, look, Dad's got to go downstairs for a little while. It's a little harder now because, I want to be, involved in everything that my kids got going on. Before the lockdown, I was like a soccer dad. So like I was going to my son's soccer practices and like I'm standing next to the coach and, yelling offsides to the ref and everything. And it's funny because I never thought I would see myself doing that. And then like my daughter's into tennis and she wants to swim. So, I'm like, okay, well, if I'm there for one, I got to be there for both. And so it's a little harder now, but at the same time, they're older. So they understand, like, listen, Dad's got to go study for a little bit for this certification. So, and like I said, it still happens. You still have those doubts. You still have that imposter syndrome and everything that comes along with it. But you just gotta, you gotta remember your why. That's another thing I tell people who I mentor. Like, when you first get into this field, you have to figure out why you want to get into this field. And if you just say because, you saw an episode of Mr. Robot or, you just heard you can make a lot of money, and you might need to reevaluate, because there are going to be days where you're going to sit there and go, I don't care how much I'm getting paid, this is not enough. So.
Yeah, it's very, very unrealistic that you'll ever find some vulnerability where you're blowing up like facility ups or things like that. Believe me, I've tried. APC will troll you with yo mama jokes in the firmware. Those bugs do not exist.
Yeah. Or I'm gonna break into Steel Mountain with a Raspberry Pi to the thermostat. Yeah. No, you're not gonna make it past the lobby.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting hearing that perspective, because I'm a single guy. I don't have kids, and whenever family obligations come up, it's easy for me to be like, yeah, you know what, I kind of want to focus on other things. But when, like in your case, when you have a family that you need to consider, like it seems like those motivations become a lot more important, or definitely carry a lot more weight.
Right. I mean, that's my, again, that's my motivator. And again, like I said, that's my laptop. Like I mean, I don't want to spoil anything, but I'll probably have it coming out soon, like a blog that's literally like a love letter to my laptop, because that laptop literally changed my life. The first time I bought the laptop and said, okay, I'm going to start practicing, it provided me the opportunity to kind of give my kids things that I didn't have and stuff. So again, like I said, it there's a lot of good with it when you do it the right way. Um, and like I said, there's a lot of bad because again, you deal with a lot of the nonsense. I mean, I'm sure you've also seen it, hell, being in this field isn't always the easiest or most welcoming either. Uh, so you got to take the good with the bad. Remember why you're doing it.
Yeah, and as far as, I guess, desirable traits that you'd like to see, for people in this field, at least for me personally, I feel like definitely self-discipline and consistency have carried me a lot further than any other trait that I have. And when I was younger, I didn't have those traits. That was from the Air Force. What
Yeah.
traits do you think are absolutely critical for people to have to be successful in this field?
Um, Everything, yeah, the focus, the dedication, the attention to detail. Because again, not paying attention to something is the difference between staying in scope or getting in trouble. So attention to detail, the consistency, work ethic. Because again, there are going to be days where you're not going to want to have to write that 50, 60, 70 page report. So you have to keep that work ethic, and again, and also like the integrity. Like you have to be able to do it. You're not going to be supervised. Someone's not going to stand over your shoulder 24/7, especially in this field. It's ever evolving, is always fast paced and moving. So you need to make sure that you're consistent, whether someone's right there with you or someone, or you're in a room by yourself. um I would definitely say the Air Force taught me a lot as well. I always had a work ethic just because, you know, I was always just about being goal oriented. Um, I want to say the discipline and the consistency, that was definitely the Air Force. It definitely made me figure out how to stay hyper focused on that work ethic. Um, but like I said, growing up, I mean, my dad was prior Air Force too, but he was always drilling it in our heads that if you're gonna do it right and do it right the first time. I mean, and the lessons were tough, and like I said, I try to instill those things into my kids now, especially these days when it just doesn't seem like that work ethic or that dedication is there. Um, so yeah, like I said, all of those, and then and for cybersecurity, communication is definitely key.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Whether it's verbal or written communication, that goes a long way. Like I don't claim to be the most technical of technical folk. There are some people who I'll get in a room with and they'll have a meeting, and I shrink sometimes. But I know I can, like I said, I can document with the best of them. So that's definitely major in this field. You have to be able to communicate, written, verbal, attention to detail, consistency, a good, strong work ethic, especially, like I said, working remote. They need to be able to trust that you're going to put in the same effort, you know, away while you're at home, away from the office. So, got to keep that productivity going.
Yep. And for me, with my very first assessment, it wasn't a pen test. it was, more of like a threat surface analysis when I was going through it and writing up the report. While I was thinking about how I was going to communicate those findings, I was thinking, the way I'm writing this now kind of seems like I'm writing this for other IT security people when the target audience is not IT security people, it's people that are on like the business side.
Yep.
So I know we're kind of going off from the questions that I sent you, but I feel like this is a great topic. What do you think people can do coming into this field to be able to better convey those risk metrics to people that are more on the business side?
Okay, so for those who are going to watch this that are on the business side, please, I don't mean this with any disrespect, but write it like almost like color in between the lines, color by number. I try to make it as simple. I try to make it as simple as possible. So when I write my reports, the first third of the report is all simple stuff. I even put like a quick little rundown of the vulnerabilities right there on the first or second page, because most executives aren't going to get past. Once you start getting into the scope, they're going to be like, I don't need to know this.
Yep.
So I put everything in. I color code it. So like red, bad, yellow, green, good.
Hey,
so they're
that
like,
works.
oh, well, we have three. Yeah, we have 3 red. So and then if I do anything, or if I successfully exploit everything, I write my proof of concepts so detailed that I can literally hand it to a child and say, follow these steps. I mean, I have screenshots. Sometimes I even do like a quick video rundown of it. But I do a screenshot. I type every command, the exact command with all the flags, so I can literally. And I've literally done this before. Like I put my son there and go, "Do me a favor. Look here. Look at this computer and type these into the computer." Because this way, if my thing is, if you can do it, then you can't argue with me about how valid it is. If you do it, you go, oh yeah, I totally did just get in and get all those usernames and passwords. So that's what I usually do with my writing. I try to make it as basic as possible for the first 3 pages where we get into the scope and the whatever. And then once we start breaking it down into the vulnerabilities, it gets a little bit technical. But then if there's any proof of concepts, the proof of concepts are literally like, here, do it yourself. I literally wrote the manual for you. Then we get into the conclusion and all of that. So
of the certifications that you have, which do you think has had the most dramatic impact of getting employer attraction?
So, employer attraction. The funny thing is, for employer attraction, it was probably getting into the field. It was the CEH. And I know when I say that, or when people watch this, they're gonna cringe and go, "What the hell are you talking about?" Right? But I usually tell folks, you're not getting the CEH for you, you're getting it for them. I know times are changing, and from my understanding, the Pentest Plus is starting to really creep up, and there's a bunch of other certs that you can get. But the CEH, for some reason, is still being highly sought after by employers. So CEH to me is the one that gets your foot in the door, gets you the interview. Now, what happens with that CEH is people who are on the other side of things, who may have other certifications like their OSCP or years of experience, and know that the CEH is just a baseline exam, they're going to grill you in that interview. So I usually tell the people that I mentor, like, listen, yeah, you get the CEH. The CEH is going to get you the interview, but know your stuff, because that's what's going to get you the job. Because if they look at the resume and go CEH, okay, watch this. And it's almost like I'm going to stump them. So for the field, I'll say the CEH. For your career, like I said, even though I failed it, OSCP. Just how that course was structured, and some of the things that you do in the labs and everything. I think that's definitely a one certification or one course that's beneficial that I encourage anybody to go through, whether you pass or fail the exam. Take that course, learn some of the scripting stuff. I know buffer overflows were a little outdated when I took it, and I think they updated some of it with the new 2020 course. But I would definitely say, go through that course, read that course, understand it, and read a lot of books. I mean, there's a lot of resources online or in print. So yeah, like I said, the CEH is definitely one that will definitely help you get your foot in the door, but you have to go beyond the CEH. So
Yep, I totally agree. And even then, there is at least one example that I can think of where CEH might actually be desirable, and that's if you're going for like a government or federal or contracting job. That'll fill 8570 requirements, and it'll fill it a lot better than Security Plus will.
Right. Yep. I mean, the funny thing is, I got the CEH. I don't know if you've seen the meme that's going around lately where the guy's like celebrating because he got a CEH and he got he's doing the champagne bath. That was literally me when I first got it. Like when I first got it, I was like, you can't tell me nothing. Like, I mean, I had my Security Plus. I had a bunch of Microsoft stuff coming from the IT side. When I got the CEH, I was like, and then I went and got a forensic certification shortly after, and I was like, oh, I'm golden. And then when I got on my first pen test job, and it was like, wait, what? This wasn't in the course.
Oh wow, one of those courses. I see how this is going.
Yeah, I was like that wasn't. Wait, what? What's an RFI? What?
Wow.
And it was like, yeah, so quick, that turnaround was quick. It was like, okay, that was short lived. It was like, oh, all right, let's get to the books. So
yeah,
books and labs.
And like on that same note, like with the OSCP exam, just by like pure hearsay, you have a pretty good idea of what you're going to be up against. I mean, you're not going to know like the specific details, but you'll have like a pretty good idea of what that's going to entail. But man, some of these exams like Cisco or, I've definitely heard it about the CISSP. They'll just ask you crap out of left field. Like if a carrier pigeon is traveling at 300 miles per hour.
Or no, my favorite, because I have my CISSP. So they give you a series of questions. So they give you, so I going back to, I got one of forensics certification, and then ISE Squared basically has their own forensic certification. I took that exam, and that exam like kicked my behind, because it was literally like, they give you a quick rundown or a quick synopsis of what it is, and then it's like, ready, go. And then it's like 6 or 7 questions based on this one little paragraph of information they gave you. And it's like, so what would you do based on that? And how would you do this? And don't make sure you don't break the chain of custody or whatever. It was rough. The CISSP was a grind, just preparing for it, because again, coming from doing stuff hands-on and stuff, and then that was all process and procedures, and that was probably the most nerve-wracking exam I've taken next to the OSCP. I remember taking the exam, and then you go through this is right before it became adaptive. So you take the exam, and then it starts asking you if you want to go through and look at your questions. So in my head, based on the practice exams and stuff, I was pretty confident, but any question that I didn't feel confident on, in my head, I marked it as wrong. So I gave myself like a cushion of like maybe 15 to 20 questions that if I didn't feel comfortable about, I was like, I'm probably going to fail. I think I got to like 16 or 17. And then it was like, do you want to review the questions? So I started reviewing the questions, and I'm like, no, I don't want to second guess myself because what if I got it right? So I literally was just like, end exam. And I remember walking back to the main lobby, and then you have to wait for, you wait for the printer to print. So I go, I'm waiting. She goes to print. The printer's out of paper. So I'm like, oh my God. What? So then she prints it, and then like I get the piece of paper, and I remember I'm reading, and it was like, congratulations, you provisionally passed. And I just remember just like hightailing it out of there.
Oh,
like
snap.
I'm running before anybody changed their mind. But those exams, like I took that exam right before Thanksgiving a few years ago. I think I slept for like a day and a half after that exam because I had like, again, my preparation is probably overkill. Like I read the books that everybody recommends. I write my own notes that end up being like a book in itself. Then I cram. I take the practice exams, and then for the CISSP, I actually signed up for like a week online course.
Yeah.
Like 2 weeks before the exam. So I did all of that. Plus, so I took my own I had my own practice exams for my resources, plus the instructor's practice exams and his notes. And like, I had to pick, like, you can't see it in here, but like I had like paper all on the ground. I had the CISSP sunflower, and I'm going through it, like the different areas. And I'm like, okay, quantitative versus qualitative, go, it was rough. But like I said, I got it, and I will never let that certification lapse because I'm never taking that exam again.
Yeah. But, I've heard that certification can do a lot for one's career as well. I mean, like I know I've seen it on almost every single IT job posting that has probably ever been in existence. But there might be some people out there that can't afford to pursue that certification, or even ones that may bring more value to their careers in pen testing. For people that find themselves in those situations, and if they have to prioritize, what certifications they pursue over others, which would you recommend for them?
So I usually, there are a couple things that I'll recommend. I would definitely say Net Plus and Sec Plus, even though they're CompTIA certs and people cringe at those, they definitely give you the baseline of stuff that you need. Don't get into security if you don't understand basic networking, right? I mean, because especially pen testing, you need to be able to rattle off ports and and what runs on those ports, almost instantaneously. You have to understand basics of networking. So I always tell people Network Plus and Security Plus. It's been a while since I took those exams, but I'm pretty sure they're not as bad as some of the other certs. I know CEH just jacked up their prices a little bit, or actually it was it used to be like $600, and I think now it's like $9 or something like that. I don't remember. But I would definitely say those three, or the Pen Test Plus. Actually, I took the beta exam for the Pen Test Plus, and I really like what they're doing with that. So I would definitely go with those to start out. Again, the CEH will get your foot in the door. Now this is where I kind of veer off from certifications for a little while, because what I'll do is after the CEH, I tell them to get their hands-on experience. So, go download VirtualBox and VulnHub machines. Go on Hack the Box, try Hack Me, all these Pentester Lab, the free version. This is all stuff you can do for free to get that hands-on experience. In the meantime, while you're gaining that experience, start looking for entry-level jobs. And make sure you command a decent salary. Even though it's entry level, you don't have to take whatever the lowest thing that they offer you. Make sure you always negotiate. Now here's where discipline kicks in, because so for example, when I went from IT work or sysadmin work to pen testing, like my salary jumped like damn near double overnight. But I still lived like I was, making what I was making at the school system.
Yeah.
Now you have this extra source of you have this extra money that you weren't expecting. So if you continue to live and stay disciplined, you can save that money. Another thing I recommend is especially if you're starting a new job, negotiate a training budget in your salary, in your package. Right. One of the things I did, I tell people I got like six or seven certifications for like under $200, and they're like, well, how? And basically what I did is I negotiated with my boss to reimburse me every time I passed. Now, no one else was taking advantage of the opportunity, so he just figured I was just going to let it fall by the wayside like everybody else. So I took that first $150 or whatever. I mean, it was just under $200 when you can count the books I bought. But I bought my first voucher for Microsoft and the books, and I studied, passed the exam. They reimbursed me. Now they reimbursed me that $200. I just went right back and put it into another certification. I kept doing that until I got every certification in that price range. And then, like I said, and as it got a little bit higher, I saved up a little bit more money. So it takes a lot of discipline. Like I said, find an employer where you can negotiate a training budget, because some of these certifications, and I'm probably shouldn't talk bad about it, but even though I got a talk coming up with them for a couple weeks, but no one has $8,000 for a SANS class, right?
Facts.
No, I remember when I spoke to them and they were like, "So have you ever thought about SANS?" Yeah, I thought about it. Then I also thought about how much it costs and what I could do with that money. So it was always just a thought. But yeah, like no, unless you really want to do it and you have the resources to do it, then great, more power to you. But those are one of those certifications or one of those courses that I would say you make sure you negotiate. Even if you negotiate something like, hey, can you pay 60% or 50% or whatever, that's a little bit more doable than $8,000 for a class. There's so many things you can do with $8,000. You can literally buy the majority of your career with $8,000.
Yeah.
So yeah, so like I said, so that's what I usually tell them to do. Get the Net Plus, Security Plus, and CEH, or Pentest Plus and CEH. Get those out the way, then start working on your hands-on stuff. I mean, some of the best pen testers and hackers I know don't have a whole bunch of letters after their name. A lot of them don't have any certifications. A lot of them let them lapse, or they just never saw the value in it because they just knew they were good with their stuff. So that's what I usually do. Get those 3 or 4. That'll probably cost you maybe a little under $1,000, I believe. Don't quote me. But then, like I said, get hands-on experience. Heck, sign up for Hack the Box, the paid version, or the paid version of Try Hack Me, or the paid version of Pentester Lab. And there's a few others: Pentester Academy, practicalpentest.com. There's a bunch of them that you can pay for, and they're somewhat affordable. Cybrary, go buy, sign up for the paid version of Cybrary and take those courses, because again, people are looking for the certifications, but I think what's more important is that you can actually understand the concepts of those certifications. I've met too many people who have been paper certified, and then you put them in front of a computer and you say, run an Nmap scan. They're like, what? Like,
What's that?
yeah. I hope he's like I remember one guy I interviewed, he talked about how he was just most elite web app hacker. And it was just like, all right, cool. So explain to me how SQL injection works. He was like, I've never really dealt with it. Okay, so you're a web app hacker and you don't know the number one vulnerability on the OWASP top 10. Got it. Explain to me how burp intruder works. What's burp? Oh, thank you for coming.
Yeah, that is how you can immediately tell that that person has never done like anything with web attacks.
Yeah, I was like, well, what's burp? Even if you say, even if you looked at me and said, I prefer Zap, or I use something else. Oh, all right, cool. But to actually sit there and say you're a web, you say you prefer web app stuff over anything else, internal, external, anything else, but you prefer web app and you don't know how to use a proxy. Okay, yeah.
Yep.
So.
Yep. And I think a lot of people get caught up on the OSCP. Offensive Security is a company that I respect and trust. They've done very well for me. But it's like you said, although it's very good, you don't need it to get into pen testing. There are other ways.
Hey, I'm proof. Like, I failed it and I'm doing great. So, like I said, you don't need it. Like I said, it's a good experience to have. But again, there's resources. I mean, we're on one of the biggest resources to learn right now. We're on YouTube right now. So most of the stuff I've learned have been Google and YouTube. I read it in a book and I'm going, oh, that's interesting, and I write it in my notebook. And then when I go to my notebook, is anything I want to look at further, then I just go ahead and type it into Google or type it into YouTube, and I start watching it hands on. I'm like, okay, cool. And then I start messing around with it in my lab. So there's a bunch of different resources out there that you don't have to pay any more than what you're paying for, your monthly cable or internet bill.
Yep. And if you can build up a solid background, you build up like GitHub projects, place in CTFs or even participate in them, list all of those different applications that you mess around with on your resume. Like that can really do a lot for you. And I don't think a lot of people really appreciate that.
Right. And I keep telling people the resume, the certifications, that's all for the employer.
Yep.
And that's all just to get into the interview. If you can't get the interview, then maybe you need to reevaluate and revise your resume, or start networking to see if you can get someone who can vouch for you or give you a reference. But like I said, once you get in there, it's all about what you know. And another tip, it's okay to say I don't know, as long as you come back with the answer, or you know how to get the answer. I've been on several interviews where I walked in and I may have drew a blank, or I may have legitimately not known the answer. But then in my follow-up email, I'm like, oh, by the way, this is what this is the answer that I missed. Just to kind of let them know that I'm dedicated to what I'm doing, and I have that willingness to learn. Some people get the certifications and they think that they're just that they're pro. One of the things I tell myself is, like, even with all the certifications I have, I still treat myself like I'm a newbie. Like I proudly call myself a noob. Right. So people are like, noob. I'm like, all right, cool. Because to me, that just means it depends on how you go with it. Like, yeah, if you're a noob and you do nothing with it, then whatever, take it and ride to the sunset. But if you treat yourself like you're always new, especially in this field where there's always something new coming out, that means you still have that hunger and that passion to learn. And that's the one thing that's the other thing I always tell people. Like, look, one kid came to me one time and was like, I want to get in this field, but I don't like reading. I'm like, then don't get in this field.
Yeah.
If you don't like reading or reviewing or seeing what's going on or reading CVEs, or go do something else.
You're not going to make it if you don't like reading. That's just a fact of life in this field.
Yep.
When we look at other paths for people to really build their careers, certainly higher education is a big factor in that. but for you and myself, we started up from the military originally, and then kind of found a trajectory into infosec from there. What do you think, or what do you think is a good place for higher education in infosec? Like, should people pursue that from the very beginning or at all, or maybe wait a little later on, when they can get employer support for it? Or, do you think the military could be a good starting point too?
So I'm torn with that because sometimes I'm like, screw college. I think college is overrated. And then there are times where I'm like, yeah, but you know what? It's all about the connections you make. And honestly, some people look at the college degrees and you might get an easier path to that ultimate goal of success. Again, mine was probably the road less traveled in the beginning, because again, there weren't, not to show off my age, but there weren't really cybersecurity degrees or IT degrees in college at that time. It was literally computer science. So I was always telling myself, why do I need to learn C++ or whatever if I want to fix a server or I want to fix a computer? I'll just go get the certification. Nowadays, I think it just depends on your preference. I think having that, not to diminish it, but having that piece of paper that says college degree or bachelor's degree or master's or whatever, do I think it might make your path a little easier? Yes. Do I think it'll set you up in the future if you want to do like management positions? Possibly, especially with the master's degree. Do I think it's absolutely necessary? Not anymore. I think Google just came out with a statement that said they're no longer making it mandatory for college education. So I think with that, I think a combination of the two would probably be the most ideal, because you can get your college degree, but again, if you don't have the certs and the hands-on experience, you're still gonna be stuck. I've beat out people for who've had college degrees because they didn't have the hands-on. So, like I said, I think it's just your preference. But if you do go to college, and that's great. See if there's so I know some colleges offer IT certifications as part of their degree program. I would definitely take advantage of those, because that's the best of both worlds right there. As far as the military is concerned, yeah, if you can get the military to kind of pay for it, whether it's through the GI Bill, as when you're a veteran or even while you're in, absolutely take advantage of that. That would probably be if I had anything to do differently, I think that's where I think I would have benefited. Leave the job, go back to the dorms, fire up your computer, and take some classes for IT certs. I think I probably would have been a lot better off, and where I came up, but things happen for a reason.
Yeah. And if you play your cards right, you could actually be Mr. Robot in that world. You could end up being on the one true red team on planet Earth. If that's what you want to do, the military is a great place to start working toward that.
Right. I will say that again, the sad part about the military is, thing is they can't keep a lot of their talent unless they're just people who are just dedicated to doing the 20.
Yep.
And not paying attention to what the market's dictating in civilian world. Because I had a few people who were like, "Oh no, I love this," and it was like, okay, and then they find out, wait, I could make how much as a civilian? Oh yeah, I'm out. So.
Yep, that is exactly why they lost me.
Yeah. Or they leave and come back as a civilian contractor.
Yep, that too. Hey,
the hustle.
First 90,000 in the Middle East is tax free. Did you know that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's nothing to shake a stick at.
Oh no! The funny thing is, before I moved to Georgia, I got offered to go out there for a year, and I didn't say I was interested, but I just ran it by my wife, and I got the look, and I was like, "So I was just telling you I wasn't considering it. Not at all. So, but yeah, absolutely. Not, I mean, tax free.
Hazardous duty pay,
Yeah,
contractor pay.
That's another conversation for another day.
I mean, the dollar bills just keep stacking up. Like the more crazier of the location that you go.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But you know, for us mere mortals that work over here in America, what do you think? I know we talked about resources, we talked about skills that are key for people to have coming into the field. Pen testing has a lot of different subgenres or sub realms, if you will. You know, we got external, internal, mobile, cloud, web app. Which of those has been the easiest for you, and which has been the most challenging?
Ooh. Again, I think just because of the company I was working for at the time, external just was really easy because it was literally what you saw in the CEH exam, right? It was doing a little bit of recon, maybe an Nmap scan here and there, and then running a vulnerability scan and seeing what vulnerabilities were on the outside and seeing if you can exploit anything. And then the internal was almost the same. You when you work for some companies that, especially like when they're like pen test puppy mills, they I don't want to piss anybody off, but whatever. Um, some of these companies don't care about being right or being accurate. They just care about getting paid.
Checking the
So
box.
yeah, so it's just kind of and whether it's the pen testing company or the client, they just want that piece of paper that just says, "Oh yeah, we had a test done, so we're compliant." Um, so they don't really care for an in-depth test. Like I said, now as you progress in your career as a pen tester, you realize, hey, no, you really got to pay attention. You really want to do the right thing. So external and internal was probably the easiest for me to learn just because it was the closest thing to what you studied in the CEH. And then as you progressed in that, you built on that, right? So that was the core, or that was the foundation, running scans, doing port scans, seeing what's available. And then you start to build on it like, okay, well, let me try to run this command, or let me see if I can add to this, in the parameter. Let me see if I can bypass authentication with a SQL injection, query or something. Web app was a little bit more difficult for me. Now I actually enjoy it more than doing external or internal. Now, where I'm at right now with doing mobile applications or API testing, I think that's a lot harder because not so much the mobile stuff, but the API stuff, because it's similar to web app pen testing, but it's not, because there's no screen to look at, there's no GUI, there's no, oh look, I put this in an input box and it came back with the same input. I put XSS in this JavaScript tag and it came back. You really have to kind of pay attention to what's going on, whether it's through Postman or if you proxy post, your Postman calls through Burp Suite or whatever. So, it's a learning curve. And then originally testing APIs based on the OWASP top 10, that was a little difficult. And then they came out with the OWASP API top 10, which then it was like, oh, now I need to learn all this stuff here. And I mean, some of it, it is redundant, but like I said, that was the challenging side, is just, learning how to test without looking at a screen, per se. So.
Yeah, and so there is some magic involved in a lot of penetration testing, but there's a pretty solid methodology to it. And almost every single person that works in pen testing knows that methodology. You start out information gathering, move on to enumeration, maybe exploitation,
Mhm.
post exploitation, etc. So, some
Right.
people may find it intimidating coming into it, but if you stick with that general methodology, you'll be all right.
Right. Again, not to plug another talk I did, but that's kind of what I said about when I did a talk for a camp for like 8th to 12th graders, and I was telling you I compared the methodology to pen testing. And what I basically told them was, when you get in, whether it's Fortnite or a new video game, you learn the basics. You learn how to jump, you learn how to dodge, you learn how to run. You learn how to move around or stay alive, or what's going to get you killed in the game, or whatever game you're playing. And then as you build on that, you start learning little tips and tricks, right? So using the Fortnite example, um, you know how to do whatever it is you got to do, but then you start having weapons that you prefer, whether it's the assault rifle and a tactical shotgun, or whatever the case may be.
The rocket launcher.
Rocket launcher, right? You build on it. So you build on that foundation, and then you start making it your own. It's the same exact thing in pen testing. So you have your 5 phases. You have your information gathering. So depending on how you do the information gathering, when you're doing passive, okay, so what are you doing? What are you using on OSINT? Are you using Shodan, Google, Maltego, whatever? When you start getting into active stuff, when you're scanning, you're doing your Nmap scans, or if it's a WordPress site, you're using your WPS scan, your WP scan. You're doing your subdomain brute forcing, so you're using GoBus or a Derb, whatever is your thing, right? But no matter what you do, that core 5 phases, that core foundation is always going to be there. So now you just have to figure out how to make it into your own. You might have certain tools and things that you use, and I'm like, oh, I never thought of that because I use this. So as long as you cover those 5 phases, you're always golden. And like I said, and no matter what it is, whether it's internal, external, web app, mobile, APIs, you're always going to follow that methodology. You just have to figure out what tools or what's different in that methodology and make it into your own.
Yep, absolutely. Which of those do you think has been the most challenging for you? Of those sub doctrines of pen testing.
Like I said, I would say right now just the mobile and API stuff, just because it's what I'm currently learning right now. Like I said, web app pen testing actually came fairly easy to me. I thought it was going to be really hard. I had a great team of guys who just kind of brought me up to speed, and then it was just like I just loved it. So if you're watching this, shout out to Cliff. Um, he was definitely my senior guy or my mentor at the time, and he just kind of taught me the stuff with Burp Suite, and I was like, oh, okay. Again, it's a little intimidating when you first look at it and you're like, what are all these tabs? What's going on here? What does this button do? Um, so it's like, once you get used to it, so it's become second nature. So like I said, web app pen testing came really easy to me. The mobile stuff, actually, I did a mobile course the other day, and I was like, oh, that's it. I just have to break down the APK file and then basically just throw that in. Oh, this whole time it was, so it's just, I think it's more of the mental aspect of everything that makes it more challenging, because it's the fear of the unknown. Um, I would definitely say to anybody who's looking to get into it, make sure you get at least a basic understanding or a basic feel for it before you go on the job, because
Yes.
then then you won't have the added pressure of, oh my gosh, I got to do this and I got to be proficient because everybody's watching at my job. Um, so that would be my advice. And like I said, so right now that would definitely be the API and mobile side of things.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say who, but somebody had kind of complained to me via Twitter about my last interview with Tiberius, when we were talking about different challenges and different problems that can come up in pen testing, because he only wanted to hear the cool stuff, right? He doesn't really care about the failures. So I learned a valuable lesson. Never ever do an authenticated spider scan with burp, because you might end up hitting all of the delete links and dropping the entire database. So these lessons, hearing these lessons, are absolutely important, both for the listeners and for me.
Well, I have my own authenticated burp story. But again, but there's a whole lead up to it. So we were working with a company, and like I said, for every phase before we start the pen test, the week before, I get my, a week or two before, I get my creds and everything. I usually tell people who I do pen tests for, I need 2 or 3 roles. I need someone who basically has no privileges. I need someone with elevated privileges, and then I might need someone who might be somewhere in between, right? Or just like a buffer, like off to the side. As if I want to do something like a brute force or a rate limiting thing, I'll use this account so that if I gets locked out, then cool, whatever. Yeah. So that's my sacrificial lamb account. So during the whole time, there was a little language barrier issue there. And I remember getting on the call, and I said, okay, so I need these accounts. So he gave me this one account, and then he gives me the other account and goes, this is root. I said, you mean elevated? I don't need root. Yeah, this is root. No, I don't want root. I want something close to admin, maybe admin, but I do not want root. No, root. Don't I get off the call with him, and I immediately called my boss, and I said, I don't feel confident about this pen test. And she's like, you'll be fine. I'm like, no. I told him I wanted, elevated privileges, and he kept saying root. And she goes, well, maybe that's what he thinks elevated privileges are. He just thinks it's root. I'm like, okay. So put everything in writing. I had to look at the camera for that one. Put everything you do in writing. That's why I always say write your detailed reports and everything, because rule number 1, and I think we learned this in the Air Force too, CYA.
Yep. I'm going to put that in big, bold red letters on the video.
Yeah. Make it flash. CYA. Because that's what saved me here. So immediately after I get off the call with her, I typed it up and said, per our phone conversation, I do not feel confident about this pen test, and here is why. I said privileged, he said root. It was at your instruction that you said, don't worry about it and move forward. All right. So I get to the pen test day, and I do my manual mapping, clicking every link, typing in every input box, the typical stuff before you actually get to doing everything. So how I do it is I click every link manually. I type in every input box, everything I can do. I look for the robots.txt file. I go through the whole 9. And then once I feel like I've exhausted everything I needed to do, and I'll go ahead and I'll run the spider. So I did all of that. I go to run the spider, and it looked like burp seized up.
Uh-oh.
Okay, that's weird. I stop it.
Burp does not do that, by the way.
Yeah. So I was like, all right. So I stop it, start it back up, start up burp again, whatever, save the project, start up burp again. I'm like, spider. And then it just and then as I'm doing that, I'm just reviewing the actual web page, looking at it, like now I'm making my notes of, ooh, I'm gonna try that for cross-site scripting, or ooh, this has a password reset function. Let me see if I can do a CSRF here. Then I just noticed that the page was acting really slow, so I'm like, all right, let me stop the spider. About 5 minutes later, my phone rings, my Slack messages start going off. My emails are going, and it's like, what are you doing? Stop. I'm like, what? Are you pen testing right now? Yeah. What did you do? Nothing yet. I just ran a spider. So apparently, not naming the website, it was an authenticated spider, and it started turning switches off. Now, oh, that was the other thing. I told them I needed to do it in UAT. Instead, they told me to put it in prod.
Ooh.
So I'm on the live website, spidering an authenticated spider as root. I started turning things off. They weren't able to accept payments.
Ouch. That one hit me in the soul just now.
So immediately after it, I get on the triage call, and they're like, "Evan, what's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I only did what I was told to do. I didn't go out. I didn't go off script. I stayed in scope, and it wasn't until like later on when they said, you know, what they did, and then like of course as they start going, as the days progress, and this was like a Friday. I was like, oh, I'll start it. I was supposed to be like going on vacation a few days early, so usually I start on a Monday morning. I said, let me start on a Friday, go through the weekend. I'll do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, write up my stuff, and then I'll go on vacation. Or right. It wasn't until like the next week now when they start putting dollar signs next to what's going on. And again, I'm not gonna say the dollar amount, but it was just like, I remember calling my boss going, so am I going to have a job still in a week or two? And they were like, oh, yeah, you should be fine. You should be fine. But the guy on the other end, he was like, I mean, he basically was just trying to blame me. Like he was doing everything but calling me a child of God. I mean, everything was my fault. Like if you let him tell it, I hacked into I might as well have hacked into their stuff, gave myself root privileges, and then decided I was going to spider authenticated as root on prod. So we end up having like a whole hearing, right? So it's me, my team, my boss, my CISO, and their team. And the funny thing is, as we start to talk, and they're like, well, Davin, what did you do? And again, here's where you need to flash it again. CYA, I just started rolling out receipts. On this day, I spoke to such and such. Here's the email he sent me with these privileges. Here's my follow-up email saying, I don't need root. I only need this. Here then is my conversation I had with my boss where I said, look at this conversation, and I don't feel comfortable. Here's what I did. Here's my burp logs. So they get to having a conversation, and in the conversation, they came to the realization that, oh, maybe we shouldn't have given him root.
Well, you think?
Yeah, like it was the quickest hearing ever, because like once I handed in my receipts, CYA, they start discussing everything on the Zoom call, and they're like, well, they're like, oh, this user gave it to him. Oh, well, they told me this. And then they started talking amongst themselves. And like, it was like about 10, 15 minutes in, I literally like chimed into the call. I was like, so can I go now? And they're like, oh yeah, Davin, you're fine. I was like, all right, cool. Never again.
Oh. And these are good lessons. This is why we talk about them. Because you don't want to be making big mistakes where you're accidentally destroying customer equipment. So
yeah, no, it was terrifying. And then like I said, then having the email, and like I said, the guy was just like, I mean, he was just berating me in the emails. So I remember at that time I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna lose my job. And it wasn't even my fault. Then it was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my job because if this guy calls me one more name or says one more negative thing about me, I'm going to show up. I'm going to pull up. And then it was just like, then again, this is where having a better half comes into play, because then she's literally going, you can't do that. I'm like, you're right. But yeah, that was probably the most tense 2 week and a half or so that I had, because it was just literally like, now you start second guessing yourself, like, well, did I do something wrong? And then you start reviewing your burp logs, and you're like, no, and then you get other emails and like, are you sure that story's 100%? Yeah, that's pretty much how it happened. Here's the emails to prove it. Yeah, that was a fun experience.
Yeah. A lot of people think that, things like Stuxnet or Dooku are the most terrifying cyber weapons in existence. From what I've heard so far, authenticated burp spider, man, that thing will wreak havoc on anything.
Burp spider and human error. Oh, I'm like my heart started thinking about it again. I was like,
yeah.
oh, yep.
So, having that background support from your wife and your family, you know, things on the job for pen testing can get pretty crazy, and it's really important to maintain some sort of work-life balance. So, for you, what strategies do you take to balance making steps toward your career goals when other life obligations need to be met as well?
So I'm probably the wrong person to ask, because like I'm a work in progress with that as of recently. Um, because again, it was always cybersecurity is its own monster. So, coming from the IT field, there wasn't really a lot you had to do. I was always like constant. Once you configured Active Directory a few times, it becomes second nature. Um, so again, back when I would study for other certifications, it was like, all right, I'm gonna lock in this week or 2 or 3 weeks or whatever it is to really hunker down, go through the book, review it, and they take my practice exams. Now it's kind of like I want to practice, and then I decided I wanted to help other people get into the field. So now I'm also up late writing blogs, or trying to do YouTube videos, or doing mentoring and coaching calls, or getting on like Slack and Discord chats and trying to help where I can. Um, you have to just know, you have to listen, to, if you have a family and they tell you, they'll let you know, especially kids. Like that's the one thing about my two, like they'll come down and go, all right, dad, I haven't seen you in like 2 days, so you gonna you gonna spend time with us? And it's like, oh crap, yeah, I'm sorry, and then you go. Same thing with my wife will literally go, I shouldn't have to miss you, and we live in the same house. Like, okay, all right, uh message received. So you listen to them. Also listen to yourself, because your body will tell you.
Yep.
Again, going back to my experience studying for the OSCP, thinking back on it, there were a bunch of different times where I think my body was like, hey, I think you're going a little too hard here. Hey, you might want to get a few more hours of sleep here. And then when my body finally like kind of just gave out on me, it was like, I told your ass, sorry, I mean, it was like, I told you. Now don't move. So um there's a couple things I try to do. Like I literally like set alarms for everything. So like I set alarms to tell myself when to take a break and to step away, because we've all been there, especially if you're doing CTS or you're on a pen test. You fall down that rabbit hole, and it's just like it's almost like it's 4 o'clock now. You start getting into stuff trying to get root, and you look back up, and it's like, holy crap, it's 9:30. You know, so I set alarms for myself. I'll tell my family, hey, if you haven't heard from me in a couple hours, come down and check on me, or call to make sure I'm good. Um, some people they have the Pomodoro technique where it's like work for 25 minutes, then break for 5 minutes, and work for another 25, and then break for maybe 15. Those are all different things you could do. And it's just good to kind of step away for a minute, and then also take breaks. Like I just had a situation recently where I was questioning whether or not I wanted to even stay in cybersecurity. And it was actually taking a break that made me realize, no, I actually love cybersecurity. I just don't enjoy some of the behind the scenes stuff. That's the part I don't enjoy. But the cybersecurity, or the field in itself, I love it. Um, so again, taking those breaks are beneficial and crucial, because it kind of re-energizes your batteries, and it just kind of makes you look at things differently. So, if my thing is, if you have like a deadline to meet, or if you're on a pen test engagement or something, and you got to be going for like a week or two, sure, knock that out, but then make sure you take at least 2 days. After you're done, whatever your whatever that goal is that you're trying to achieve, you know, make sure you take a break for a couple of days. Like I said, I started playing video games again. So like I'll play, I'll go crazy for like a week or two, meet whatever goals or deadlines I have to meet, and then I'll sit there and say, okay, outside of work, because I'm a pen tester at work. So once 3, 4 o'clock hits and I'm done for the day, I shut it down. I walk away from the computer and I go and I'll turn on the Xbox. I might play some Overwatch, or I get on the laptop and play something else. And yeah, that itch in my brain is like, hey, you should probably go check out this new vulnerable machine or this new CTF. But you have to kind of tune that out, just for your own mental health. So, like I said, you always take at least 2 days, even if it's every week or two, but take 2 days. It doesn't have to be Saturday and Sunday, but just make sure you take a few hours out of the day, a couple days, here and there, to recharge your batteries and come back, and take breaks in between your work day.
If you look at yourself in the mirror and you see that you look like Skeletor from He-Man, you're probably working too hard. It's time to take a break.
Yeah. Yeah, really.
But
Absolutely.
and I imagine that's especially difficult for you, because from what I understand, you run your own business. So for those that are considering doing that, maybe they are just done working for the man, and they just want to start working for themselves. Have some sort of lasting legacy in their own name. What do you think that they should be aware of, and how do you feel that those two, like working for yourself and working for an employer, how do you feel that those experiences differ?
So yes, I do work. I do have my own stuff, but I also still work full time for an employer. Health benefits are expensive, and I have 2 kids who are very active. so, so there's that, and then there's other benefits that you can take advantage of. 401ks. Like I said before, training budgets. These are things that employers can produce for you. So, and also, I'm not making enough money to pay just to pay my monthly bills. My wife is self-employed. She runs a custom cake business, and that's fairly successful and building up steam since we've moved down here. But like I said, I work full time to make sure that I can provide health benefits for everybody. So, um, I would say to those who are looking to get into it, do your research, uh, figure out what it is that you want to do, and do your research on it. Do not leave your job until until you have enough. Either you have enough money saved where you can consistently pay your bills for at least 6 months, or you get bought out by some giant tech firm, and they pay you whatever money for acquisition. But yeah, my thing is just, you be realistic. We're not all Dave Kennedy, who runs Trusted Sec or the guys at Rapid 7, who have these big coal fire guys that have these, fairly big companies that are making a lot of money. So I would definitely find that balance, do your research, figure out how much things are going to cost, figure out how much is going to take for you to live. Like I said, I got into this field, like I said, my daughter is into sports, my son's in sports. We all like to enjoy ourselves and go on vacations and stuff. None of that is cheap. So you have to budget all of that out, and again, you also have to have the discipline. So don't make the jump until you're absolutely certain that you can make the jump, because you have some people who are like, I'm going to go into business for myself. Yeah, screw the man. And then you realize, it's not as easy as I thought. Like I said, I would make sure, like, just because of how I do things, like, make sure you don't have anything that's any outstanding debts. Make sure your credit to debt ratio make sure all of that is covered. Don't quit your job and have like 3 maxed out credit cards. It's just not gonna happen.
Probably not a good idea.
No, not at all. So like I said, it's definitely it's a grind. I mean, again, like I said, working my regular 8-hour shift, and then, like I said, doing a coaching call or writing up a blog article. I mean, like I said, none of that really makes any money. Right now is just more of the kind of, I guess, the helping people, as well as kind of getting some exposure. So you just kind of have to, again, always bet on yourself and do the work. Eventually it'll pay off if you're consistent. But if not, you still have another source of income that pays your bills.
And for the listeners, when we're talking about discipline, we're not talking about, like flogging yourself with like a chain whip or something like that. When we're talking about discipline, we mean simple things. We're talking about things like making your bed every morning, not because it's a chore, but because you're setting the context for what your day is going to be like. That's the kind of discipline that we're talking about.
You work from home, still get dressed. I mean, yeah, don't go out in your Sunday best, but also don't get to your keyboard in your pajamas all the time. I mean, every once in a while, it's okay. It's okay to slum it once in a while because no one's looking. But keep that same mindset. Make sure you stick to a routine. That's the things I'm talking about when I say stay disciplined.
Yep.
And again, that trickles into other things like financial discipline. Like, okay, I have enough money to buy this whatever, but I also know I have a goal in hand, so let me not spend that. There's that kind of discipline.
But on the other hand, there are a lot of people in this field that are not disciplined. And it's not to say that they're bad pen testers or that they're bad people. I mean, I'm sure there probably are bad people in pen testing, but people
bad people in pen testing or cybersecurity as a whole. Blasphemy. But
it brings up a lot of other issues that you might see in pen testing. And some of them can be social issues. I know certainly when I look at InfoSec Twitter, half the time I feel like I'm growing a tumor in my side. Other times it could be burnout, it could be gatekeeping, it might even be, like I have written in the question that I sent you for this, could even be AI and automation. We have no idea what impact that is going to have on our career field.
Mm-hmm.
So with all of these issues taken into consideration, which do you think are have the highest potential to impact people negatively, and what do you think can be done to address those issues?
Okay, so long term AI, the fear of the unknown with AI and automation. I saw an ad on LinkedIn the other day that basically did a simulated pen test. I can't remember the name of the company, and honestly, I don't want to give the name of the company because I don't want to give them free promotion. And now you're gonna take someone's job away. But I saw it and I was like, oh crap! Oh, you're going through SMB? Oh crap! It was just like, okay. But short term, especially during the time of COVID, burnout, the gatekeeping, that's the social issues. They all play. They all are playing well with each other right now at just damaging some really good people, me included. Like I said, one of the issues when I stepped back a little while ago, it was due to similar issues. Because again, you have people like you said, the guy who was like, "Oh, I don't want to hear about the hard stuff. I just want to hear about the cool stories. I want to hear about the ponage," or being, being a black guy in cybersecurity, or even see some of the things you see with some of the women. It just seems like you're fighting to validate your existence. Um, it gets exhausting. Like I've literally had like I think I put out an article one time about I think I put out an article just about webcams or something, and it was like, and what credentials do you have to speak on these things?
The old classical logical fallacy of appeal to I can't remember what it is. There's an actual term for that.
Yeah, but it's like the constant battle to try to validate my existence on top of being in COVID, on top of the social issues, and on top of just now feeling like, okay, burnout is on the way. That all played a factor in it. I just think, people just need to understand that we're all different. Hell, I know other black people that came up in a different background than I did. You know what I'm saying? So, but that's what makes this field great, because you may have something, or based on your experiences, you may have an approach to something that I may have not even thought about, right? Whether it's with social engineering and physical pen testing, whether it's with the actual pen testing itself, you know, that's what the community is supposed to be about. And it's supposed to be about inclusivity, and it's supposed to be about, acceptance. And I think somewhere along the line, I don't know if it was with, everybody making money in Silicon Valley or whatever the case may be, I think we lost sight of that. And you're, like I said, you're pushing away some people who are well deserving. I mean, infosec, again, talking about infosec Twitter, like, yeah, infosec Twitter can be very entertaining, and then at other times it can be very exhausting, right? I mean, some of the biggest influencers, or if you want to call them that, but some of the people who I learn a lot from, or that I follow and just like admire, most of them are women. Caitlin Bowden, Alyssa Miller, Ian Coldwater. You know what I'm saying? Just to name a few. And the funny thing is, there was an incident a couple weeks ago where somebody was claiming.
Is this the one where they all roasted that guy?
Oh gosh, it was epic. It was epic.
I saw
It was epic. And then he started getting into containerization and Kubernetes, and Ian stepped in and they said, "Well, tell me about the CVE," and he started acting, and then it was like look my name, look it up, baby, you'll see my name on it. Oh, that was I love
that. That was brutal.
Right, but but it's like you have people who come from different backgrounds, different genders, different races, religions, they all have, like I said, they all deserve to be here. Because the ones who don't deserve to be here, you'll see it in just talking to them, because again, they can just be paper certified, or they can just be talking out their behinds. So, the ones who deserve to be here, damn it, give them the platform and give them their respect. It just gets to be difficult when you're everybody's working towards the goal of security, right? Whether it's securing families, whether it's securing our government, whether it's securing our companies, securing our elections, securing our power grid, whatever it is, we are all in the same fight. It's exhausting to have to try to stay on top of the bad guys who don't have to live by rules of engagements and scopes and deadlines. It takes them, they can try a million tries and it just takes them one chance to get it right, where we have to constantly stay vigilant. So it's really hard to do that and protect whatever company or whatever it is you're working to protect. And then you also have to protect yourself from someone else on the outside that might not like you just because.
Yep,
They
absolutely.
don't know you personally. They don't know you personally. They don't know your upbringing. I guarantee you some of the things that have been said to me, I guarantee you if I met you in person, you wouldn't have that same energy that you have behind the keyboard. Not that I'm threatening anybody, but I'm just saying you wouldn't keep that same energy. It gets to be exhausting,
It's probably not a good idea to talk smack to people that could beat the shit out of you,
No, not at all. Not at all. Wait, especially, and we're all in this field.
Yep.
We all know the capabilities of like. You're really gonna talk. You're gonna talk crap to someone who literally does OSINT and doxing for a living.
Probably not a good idea.
So yeah, I think everybody just needs to kind of stay on task. And like I said, I don't know if it's just the current climate of things that just make it people think it's okay to just not be accepting of other people, but we got to get back to what it was at its core. Like I said, I'm not a historian, but I don't think from what I've heard from other people that it was this toxic back in the day. And I don't know if it's the same. And the funny thing is, I don't know if the same thing we use to communicate is what's making it toxic. Like, is it Twitter? Is it the fact that we can communicate normally and not have to wait for conferences and everything to see each other face to face or whatever? I don't know, but the shit just needs to stop.
Yep. And I think this is going to be a throwback. This is going to be before my time for sure. But I think one of the best writings in all of InfoSec is probably the Hacker Manifesto by the Mentor back in the 80s. Yep. So this dude wrote this incredible piece of like this essay while he was in prison for hacking. And, through that, it proposed the idea that, every hacker is alike in some way or another. And we shouldn't let the outside factors of the world or the circumstances that we find ourselves in to separate us, because we're all alike. Mm-hmm. And I think it's easy to forget that in the high speed society of the internet these days.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's just, I don't know. Like I said, I look at it from a standpoint of, some people look at it like, oh yeah, you can't speak to me because I'm elite or whatever. And I'm in a position where, you know what, I couldn't find a mentor coming up in the field. So now I try to make sure, like I said, I know how hard it was to really get my footing, but I also know how the fruits of my labor paid off. So now if I can help the next person get to that goal without the speed bumps that I experienced, but still get them to understand the knowledge and the concepts to get to that goal, to whether it's to start a family or help provide for their family or get an opportunity to, make a decent living legitimately. What I don't understand, where people how people have a problem with that, or why people wouldn't want to do that. I mean, again, you have some people who can literally change somebody's life. And instead of trying to bring someone in, or even if you disagree with them, or even if they said something that you don't think is technically sound, hit them up on the side, shoot them a message in their DMs and say, hey, you might want to revise this, or you might want to just do a little bit more research or something. You don't have to try to publicly shame them, or you don't have to try to call them out because you think that they might be wrong, or you don't understand something, so therefore they're beneath you. Yeah, like I said,
that goes the other way too. Like, you don't want to be putting people on pedestals either, because that can make people extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, that's true too. That's definitely true. Yeah, you don't want to put people on pedestals. You don't want to like worship or idolize people. Like I said, I respect everybody's work or everybody's contributions. Like, again, I don't look at it like if somebody comes and tries to ask me a question, I will be glad to help. Why? Because I got questions every day. So
it's a nonstop struggle of questions.
Yeah, like seriously. Like, let me rephrase that. If you have a question and it's not something that you can find on the first page of Google.
Yes.
That's the only thing I like. If you're gonna ask me a question, make sure you put in some of the work first. Like, please don't have me Google it for you. That's all I ask.
So, kind of bringing this toward a close, what's next for you? I remember you had said earlier that you have an upcoming SANS webcast for pen testing APIs.
Yep.
What else is coming up for you? Any projects? Any other speaking events?
There's a couple more speaking events. I haven't locked in dates yet. I'll definitely. And the funny thing is, I said it on Twitter because I'm all about, putting things out into the universe and letting things manifest. And I kept telling myself that, I need to get out there and, get some more exposure just to kind of, again, help people, because there might be something I say or something that I do that might trigger someone else to say, hey, I can relate, or, hey, how can I get in contact? So I put the post on Twitter. I was like, listen, I really want to, work on my speaking and get that experience and that nervousness out. And you reached out, and a whole bunch of other people reached out. And now it's like, okay, well, I said it, so I'm a man of my word. So now I'm definitely trying to make sure I honor everybody who messaged me. I've reached back to everybody, so there whether there's panels, discussions, and stuff, I just haven't locked in the dates yet. So you'll be seeing a lot more of me on the internet, because I'm not going anywhere in person because of COVID just yet. I'm working on the final touches of probably starting my own platform, whether it's a podcast or something on YouTube, or both. Then probably go through making some more videos and blog posts about CTF walkthroughs, going through the OSCP list of VulnHub machines, and then maybe hack the box. So I got a few things that I'm working on. Like I said, it's just a matter of, again, finding the time to do it all. If someone can, whoever can discover like another hour and a half in a day, like I need whatever that formula is. Some of these folks on here, I'm like, when do you sleep? They're like, oh, I sleep 10 hours a night. How? You're literally tweeting as you're telling me you're sleeping. I don't understand what the hell's going on. But yeah. Like I said, I got that. Like I said, the podcast should be coming soon. And then just, again, trying to help create those resources that we talked about, for folks that may not have the resources, especially during this time when you might be unemployed or finances are a little low.
Oh, definitely.
I can, if you can get the hands-on experience, and then as soon as you get your money up, grab a couple certs, that'll definitely take you far. So again, I don't want to just talk about it. I want to be about it. So, I'm definitely trying to be the change that I want to see.
Yep. And, kind of throwing way back to the movie Big Daddy, initiating the conversation is half the battle. But I like to think of it in another context too. Looking cool is the other half of the battle. You can't look cool if you don't initiate the conversation.
Yep. You know what? I don't see any lies in that statement. That's actually true. Yeah. So, yeah, definitely.
Where can people find you, reach out to you? Facebook links, Twitter.
Yeah. So, Facebook and Instagram are both djax_alpha. Blog site is alphacybersecurity.tech. YouTube, just search for Alpha Cybersecurity because I'm not
Description.
I'm not cool enough to get a link with the whole name on it with my own name yet. It's still like a whole bunch of letters. And Facebook, same thing. Facebook.com/alphacybersec because it didn't let me do security for some reason. But yeah, like I said, and I try to post on Instagram and Facebook a little bit more. I'm more active on Twitter just because they seem to like me a lot better over there. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
It's certainly been a pleasure chatting with you and getting to know you better, hearing your experiences, and taking in all of that, and trying to forge my own path still. I find that there's things that you can do for yourself, and that's fine. I think that's a key skill, but you can only make it so far by yourself. At some point you have to start reaching out. You got to start building relationships. And
absolutely. And that was probably one of the mistakes I made, that I tried a couple times, and when people didn't respond, it was like, I'll do it myself. And then
But yeah, definitely appreciate you having on the channel. Like I said, we'll throw your links in the description below. It has been a pleasure talking with you. Do you have any cool outros that you do?
Nope. Like I said, again, always bet on yourself. Do the work. Know your shit. You'll go far. Oh, CYA. Remember, you got to flash that again.
Big bold letters.
But yeah, that's usually my thing. Always bet on yourself, do the work, and know your shit. If you do those three things, actually, Marcus J. Carey, he actually reached out to me when I was really in the thick of it, and he introduced me to this book called The Four Agreements. And I highly encourage you guys, anybody to get this book. It's just a really good book, and for some reason, for me it definitely related well with cybersecurity, but it also with everything that I say. So the Four Agreements are: be impeccable with your word, don't take anything personally, don't make assumptions, and always do your best. So I would definitely follow those as well. But yeah, like I said, always bet on yourself, do the work, know your, follow those 4 rules. You'll go far in life.
Stay on the grind.
Sir.
Well, with that being said, we'll go ahead, we'll wrap this up, do my weird little outro. If you've ever thought about waging asymmetric cyber warfare with the power of Burp Spider, ladies and gentlemen, go ahead, hit those like and subscribe buttons. Go check out DJX Alpha. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody, and we'll catch you in the next video.